All right, it is tinfoil hat time because I am about to speculate harder than you could ever imagine. So, that being said, this video is not anything that I think anybody could ever prove. It's not anything that I have direct facts to support. This is simply what I think happened in Shasta County with the red, white, and blueprint, the recall, and all of the events since. Here's how I think it happened and why. This is just my opinions, and I'm going to talk about some people and situations in here that I have now mended fences with, so this is not meant to be disrespectful towards them or to rehash anything. This is simply my conclusion based on the facts that I do know and my reasoning to try to explain the things that I do know for sure. So let's start at the beginning with Reverge Anselmo. This dude, I don't think he's listed as an actual billionaire, but his mother was a multi-billionaire, and I think the assumption is that that money had to go somewhere. So that's why he is known as the Connecticut billionaire, which he may not have the money, we don't know that, but it just kind of seems like he does. So he owned Anselmo Vineyards, a really fancy place. I actually ate there once, a long time ago. Very fancy, yes, so damn fancy. Beautiful place though. He created a really pretty place up there. There were a lot of stories about him being a douchebag basically to his patrons there. Apparently one time he shoved a female patron into a closet. That's something that I heard, I read about it somewhere. But I believe the person that happened to is the source where that came from. So again, just what's being said. He wanted to build a chapel on his vineyard, and it wasn't up to code. At that time, Leonard Modi was the chair of the Board of Supervisors, and he was part of the panel that didn't allow Mr. Anselmo to upgrade his property. Another thing, Les Baugh was also on the Board of Supervisors at that time, and Les Baugh was one of the ones who voted to file an injunction against Mr. Anselmo until he properly permitted his buildings. Little rabbit trail here on Les Baugh. Reverge Anselmo actually sued Les Baugh, but I don't know how that resolved or the outcome of it. It's probably something that can be found, I just haven't found it. But the point is that Reverge Anselmo didn't like Les Baugh. But then Les Baugh turns around and supports every one of the votes that would benefit the red, white, and blueprint, Patrick Jones, that side of people. And I get it, yes, Les Baugh is Republican, but he voted on things that didn't seem like he should have at times, or simply to just vote in the way of Patrick Jones. So again, wearing a tinfoil hat, I think they found something on Les Baugh and they made him support them. So I'm not going to even speculate on what I think they found because I think that's just a little too far down the tinfoil hat trail. But I have my suspicions, and I think they used that against him for his vote. So anyway, time for another rabbit trail. So if you look at the people that supported all of this recall stuff, look at the loudest people. So Terry and Sally Raposa. So we went deep into the folder of receipts, and we found a video 10 years ago of Terry Raposa speaking publicly in support of Mr. Anselmo's chapel project. So that's where that connection comes from. Anyways, back to the main storyline. So I think here's the kicker, and this is where his grudge came from. His wife divorced him after he lost the vineyards. So I think in his mind, he blamed that on the city, on the supervisors. And Modi being the chair, I feel like received a lot of that hatred from Reverge Anselmo. So fast forward, Reverge Anselmo disappears for years. And then he shows up out of the blue and gives Patrick Jones $100,000 to oust Steve Morgan. I think Anselmo saw that as an opportunity to get his revenge on Shasta County. So he gets Patrick Jones in. That was step one. $100,000 is the largest campaign donation that anybody's ever received at this level of local politics. It's just a guaranteed win. So they got Patrick Jones in. I don't know what the discussions were that initially happened to start the Red, White, and Blueprint documentary, but when they did make the decision to start it, Carlos Zapata had just emerged as this sort of grassroots right-wing hero after he gave that speech at the Board of Supervisors. He blew up, he was on Alex Jones, he was all over right-wing media, and he was the obvious person to look to be able to push this documentary that is supposed to be supporting this recall of Leonard Modi. And you know what? They were trying to go after the 3 supervisors at first. I think the other 2 were just decoys. I think it was all about going after Modi because of Reverge Anselmo's hatred towards Leonard Modi, that he had been building this grudge up now for years. And then, like I said, Carlos comes along. And then so when they started the documentary, they needed someone to lead it, to give it that face. And so they used Carlos. Carlos is very charismatic. He's a cowboy, he does all of the shit and hits all the check boxes that side of people are just they're gonna look at him like, John Dutton or something. None of this is a diss on Carlos Zapata right now. It is not. I really do. We've found common ground. We don't hate each other anymore. He's just part of the story, as I am part of the story. So if you see this, Carlos, don't be upset by this, man. I'm not here to insult you or anything like that. I'm just trying to go through what I think happened. Anyways, so Carlos played the part. He did very well at that part. And I also believe that Carlos legitimately did feel like he was fighting for the right causes. He doesn't seem like the type of person that's just going to fight for a thing just because he's being paid or something. And then what happened is I started making fun of the things Carlos was saying on the internet. And again, this is not to diss Carlos, but I believe at that point in his life, he wasn't really somebody that had really been talked back too much, been ridiculed, made fun of. And I don't think that's something he planned for when he set out for fame. It's really difficult to deal with ridicule when you're not ready for it, and especially if you haven't experienced it before. So what we saw was I made fun of Carlos in a satirical way, and I was making fun of that whole group of people essentially. But he was the loudest, so I picked the loudest guy. And then he lashed out. He made a mistake. He did the thing at the restaurant that got him in some trouble, not a whole lot of trouble, but enough that it's remembered by people. So then after the thing at Market Street, I spoke with Leonard Modi, and they billed that as Leonard Modi reaching out to the person that they hated because I ridiculed them. Carlos says it in one of the Red, White, and Blueprint episodes. He says that Leonard Modi made it personal. So now Reverge Anselmo and Carlos both had a similar person to fuel their anger into, and it became Leonard Modi. And here's the thing, there's no way Reverge Anselmo could have been responsible for what happened between Carlos and I. Carlos made the decision to go speak out, just like I made the decision to make fun of the things he was saying. Reverge Anselmo could not control that. I think that was just sheer dumb luck and coincidence that allowed Reverge Anselmo to push forward with this master plan of revenge. Tinfoil hat, don't forget. I guess what I'm trying to say is Reverge Anselmo uses people. He used Leonard Modi to exact his revenge on the county. He used Patrick Jones to replace Steve Morgan, and he has now used Carlos as this sort of meat shield for his revenge plot. Think about what Carlos has probably had to go through. Since the night that he lashed out at the Blade and Barrel, he has made the entire news circuit in an extremely negative way multiple times. He has journalists, very dedicated journalists, that have seemingly lifelong vendettas against him. His inability to handle ridicule has caused him to lash out in other ways towards other members of the community. And Reverge Anselmo just kind of let this all happen. And I think Reverge Anselmo probably didn't even care at this point what happened to Carlos, because the recall already happened. He already got enough votes on that board, and that's all he needed to get to where we are now, where we have the 3 candidates who were paid for by Reverge Anselmo now putting this county in jeopardy of being sued for more money than this county is capable of paying. And I think Reverge Anselmo knows that. I think all of this is what he wanted, and he's using all of these people in Shasta County like they're little pawns for his mega revenge plan. Now, yes, That all sounds fucking crazy. It sounds like an insane person should be wearing a tinfoil hat when they say something like that. But maybe, what if I'm right? And that is literally just how fucking crazy what's happening is. This is why there shouldn't be billionaires. This is why people with that much money should not be allowed to meddle in politics, because they clearly have the power to take away the voting rights of 182,000 people, all because of a grudge. That's too much power. That's way too much power. So, anyways, that is my mega speculation. I tried to fast forward parts of it. Oh, lastly, I also think that Reverge Anselmo brought Vladislav Davidson here. I have been racking my brain ever since that dude showed up, caused a whole bunch of fucking noise, got the recall all riled up, wrote that speech that they all read that one day at the Board of Supervisors where they quoted Placer County or some shit. Vladislav Davidson wrote all that. And then after the recall, poof, disappears. Not seen from or heard from again. Because I think his fucking contract was up. Anyways, this has been a whole bunch of speculation, but kind of makes sense though, doesn't it? Anyways, again, I apologize to anybody who thinks I'm trying to rehash things, and I know people have different views now than they did back then, and I do think that some people need to be forgiven for some of the things they might have said or done if they are actually remorseful for them. All right, back to being sane. What just happened? I blacked out.